Welcome everyone. Today we will be discussing the Italo-Turkish War. This is quite an unknown war, which may be surprising considering how influential it was in setting the stage right before World War I kicked off. This war changed the balance of power in Europe so drastically that while Italy only took Libya out of the Ottomans, the Balkan states decided to strike as well and pretty much kick the Ottomans out of the Balkans. And all of this happened within 3 years of World War I starting. So let's meet Italy in 1910. Italy was a recently unified nation, and both on the European continent and in the colonial game, they really couldn't stand up to their larger European neighbors. But they did have a proud history which they weren't afraid to show. References to the Roman Empire were not an invention by Mussolini, but ever since Italy unified, and even before that, the ancient history of Rome was a massive inspiration. Where the Pope used the ancient Roman ruins as cheap sources of marble, the Italian kingdom funded and displayed excavations of these old Roman sites. In many pieces of propaganda, the Roman Empire was mentioned as being the precursor to modern Italy. And what was one of the defining traits about Rome? They conquered. A lot. One very notable person the Italians connected themselves to was Scipio, the Roman who defeated Hannibal and Carthage in Africa. Coincidentally, this was also the time for European nations to start driving up colonies, but Italy had been very late to the party, only having some minor African possessions in Somalia and Eritrea, but having lost to Ethiopia in the embarrassing First Italo-Ethiopian War, they couldn't expand their colony any further. But, looking at a map of Africa, there was really nowhere else to expand that wasn't already owned by another, usually more powerful, European state. The only relatively weak nation within Italy's vicinity was the Ottoman Empire, who still held on to the protectorate of Libya as an unconnected part of their formerly large empire. Libya actually happened to be quite close to Italy, facilitating both propaganda that this land is rightfully Italian and making the actual invasion quite a bit easier. Starting in the 1900s, Italy started gathering international support for their invasion of Libya. They ensured French and Russian neutrality, but even more importantly, they secured a British declaration that even though Egypt was officially still a part of the Ottoman Empire, the Ottomans would not get military access through Egypt, and no Egyptian forces were to take part of the war on the side of the Ottomans. This essentially meant that both sides would have to reinforce and supply Libya by sea, which gave Italy the massive edge since they had the more advanced navy. With these pledges, Italy felt confident enough to begin preparations for their invasion. Interestingly though, from a diplomatic standpoint, the official Italian allies of Germany and Austria-Hungary were very unhappy about this war, especially as Austria became suspicious of further Italian encroachment into the Balkans because of the war. When the Italian government did have their invasion force ready, they sent an ultimatum to the Ottoman government to withdraw all Ottoman forces from the region within 48 hours. The Ottomans were very aware that they couldn't really win this war in Libya, so with Austrian mediation they offered to surrender Libya to Italy under the condition that at least on paper Libya would remain a part of the Ottoman Empire, in a similar style arrangement as the British dominion over Egypt, despite Egypt officially still being a part of the Ottoman Empire. But Italy wanted to gain full and official ownership over Libya, so they refused the Ottoman peace deal and declared war in September of 1911. And to me, this is truly remarkable. This war happened only 3 years before the First World War, but how many of you really know about it? Even more interestingly, with the Italian victory over the Turks, the Balkan states of Bulgaria, Greece, Serbia and Montenegro all declared war on the Ottoman Empire in 1913, after which these same Balkan nations fought each other again in 1913. These series of wars happened within 2 years from the First World War, yet they are rarely discussed as critical. But imagine Italy didn't invade Libya in 1911, leading to the Balkan nations biding their time just a bit longer. Look at just how different the map looks in 1911 when compared to 1914. Assuming the Ottomans still sided with the Central Powers, we would see Bulgaria joining in with the Allies. Even with all else being equal, having Bulgaria on the winning side of the First World War instead of on the losing end, only years after being defeated by the other Balkan powers, would lead to a much bigger Bulgaria today. Of course, this is all just speculation, but it is fascinating nonetheless. One delayed invasion by Italy and the Balkan nations may have changed the course of the First World War drastically. So, onto the actual war. The Italian landing was very problematic, despite having a long time to prepare. They landed and captured several coastal regions, but suffered heavy losses despite outnumbering the Ottomans by a massive margin. The real edge for Italy though came on sea. Thanks to the British refusal to allow the Ottoman troops through Egypt, control of the seas would be paramount for either side to win the conflict. The Italians fought and won several battles against the Ottomans, and so they controlled most of the Libyan coastline, even occupying some islands in the Dodecanese archipelago, ensuring continued Italian domination over the Mediterranean seas. But the Italian government was expecting a quick seizure of Libya, after which the Ottoman Empire would simply surrender. This didn't happen, and with the war dragging on past a year, the Italian government had enough, and began peace negotiations. For the Ottoman side, as previously mentioned, a new war with the Balkan nations had just broken out, having the Ottomans fight Italy, Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece and Montenegro, with the added difficulty of internal uprisings within the Balkan region. The eventual peace deal was much like the initial compromise the Ottoman government offered, with Libya officially becoming autonomous territories within the Ottoman Empire, but in reality they came under Italian control. So, in the end, it may have been way better for Italy if they had just accepted the initial compromise by the Ottomans, as the war was extremely expensive for Italy. Italy then promised that they would remove their troops from the Dodecanese islands, but they never did so, as the First Balkan War and then the First World War broke out and allowed Italy to remain on the island. Now the war was rather disastrous for the Italian economy. They were expecting a quick victory, costing at most 30 lire per month, but when the war dragged on for more than a year, costing 80 million lire per month, more than 2.5 times the expected cost, the war became a real drain on the Italian economy. The total war cost 1.3 billion lire, close to $1 billion more than was expected. The Libyan colony itself also proved extremely problematic for the Italians, and cost way more than they gained out of it, especially in the short term. For up to 10 years after the official annexation, Italian control was rather weak, and many punitive expeditions had to be launched against rebels within Libya. In a diplomatic sense, the war changed the balance of power in Europe more drastically than one might think, although it was more of a confirmation than an actual radical shift. Germany and Austria were the patrons of the Ottoman Empire, and they were not very favorable to the war. Especially Germany was furious about the whole affair. Austria became even more afraid of Italian claims in the Balkans, as with their annexation of Libya, there really didn't seem many other paths for Italian expansion, and Italy did have irredentist claims on the Dalmatian coast and South Tyrol. The already weak Triple Alliance may have been dealt a death blow thanks to this war, where Britain, France and Russia supported Italy, while Germany and Austria abandoned their official Italian allies for the Ottoman Empire. To finish off with some interesting side notes, this war is recognized as being the first where airplanes played a massive role in the military side of the conflict, having the first reconnaissance flights and the first aerial bombs dropped by Italy on Ottoman forces in Libya. Another interesting side note is that Mustafa Kemal fought and distinguished himself as a commander during this war. Mustafa Kemal would later go on to be the first and probably the most influential Turkish president, earning himself the name of Atatürk, father of the Turks. Without this first victory, who knows? He may have never been in the position to become the influential leader he was in our own timeline. So that's it for this video. As always, to support the channel and the content, leave a like and a comment. Even just commenting hi helps the channel out massively, as it sends a sign to YouTube that you guys are engaging with the content. As always, subscribe for more, as every Friday there will be a new alternate history video, and usually there are a couple more history videos spread throughout the week. As always, thank you all for watching, and goodbye.